Welcome to Pnimis HaTorah Gimel Cheshvan Tafshin Pei Gimel, the yard site of the Heilige Rishner, and make our L'chaim every week. Al Pip Kudas Moreno Harav Chaim Zalman ben Rabbeinu Moshe, the cover of the Rishner's father Shalom Shachna ben Rabbeinu Avram, and tonight we're going to make a L'chaim, the cover of the Rishner first, and then his father Shalom Shachna. Then we'll go Kedar Kain B'Kodesh, the Rishner, the Stefan Esther, etc. I think it's said from the Rishner that someone was mocking Hasidim after Shachar, so would make a l'chaim. So the Misnagdim were mocking them. What's up? You always make a l'chaim after Shachris. You know, it's like everything's life's not a party. So I believe it was the Rishner. He said that. And when you daven, when the whole tzibur is davening, so the Yetzer Hara and all the kaichas of the Sitra Achar are looking to bat away Klal Yisrael's tefillas. They see Klal Yisrael come, they put on the towel, so it's filling, they're davening a formal davening, and all the kaichas are looking to push away the tefillas. He says, what do Chasidim do? They sit down after davening, and they open up a bottle of schnapps. The Yetzer Hara says, now they're playing. Now they're on my court. They're playing my game. You know, he sits back, relaxes. You know, and then when they sit down with a bottle of schnapps, what do they say? They say l'chaim, 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 and really what this thing, kavanah zibari shalom is mukar chaim, right? That everything should be l'shem shemayim, right? And give brachas to each other at the same time. And with this, the mala, all the tefillas pass the Sitra Achra. He said, this is I believe it's b'shem the Rishner. There's some other pshatim wants to talk about l'chaim. The Chassidim say like this: well, what do you Litvish do? What do you Misnagdim do after davening? You say we learn Mishnayos. You say it's perfect. You know, who do you learn Mishnayos for? From Asim, you learn Mishnayos. So you daven like a bunch of tight dimension. So you say Mishnayos. So you learn Mishnayos for all the dead tefillas. He says, we daven b'tachiyas. So what do you do? What do live people do? They machal l'chaim. That was Nacha Pshat. And there's another Pshat. He said from the Oiv Yisrael, I believe, he said over this Pshat. He says that in your l'chaim is that Yidden sit together. You know, people all walks of life sit down in shul. It's interesting. You walk into a shul, right? And shul, that's a community shul. You have all sorts of people, right? All different levels of chachma and ashiras and frumkeit, and they all come together to daven. But so by davening, you don't per se see it. But when everyone sits down after, when everyone sits down together to make a l'chaim afterwards, everyone's the same, right? Everyone, there's no problem at that point. You sit down, mach l'chaim, you know, eat a piece of herring with kichel, you know what I'm saying? Everybody's, you know, exactly, you're about to the same level. So the inyan of l'chaim is the inyan of achdus. He says that the way he said it was Azeh, that when he was in Cheder, and he was learning, they were learning the Nekudas. The Rebbe was teaching the Nekudas in first grade, and he showed him a shava, right? 2 dots, one top of the next. And the Rebbe says, he asked him, do you know what this is? He says, yeah, it's Hashem, right? Because he knew already 2 dots next to each other, 2 yuds was Shem Hashem. And the Siddur has two yuds, right? That's how it's right in the Siddur, Shem Hashem. So you saw 2 dots, one top of the next. So he said, 2 dots is Shem Hashem. It's Hashem. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So he said, the Malam B'Tol Mazeh. He said, let me explain you something. When you have 2 Yidden, right, and they're side by side, right next to each other, Shav b'Shavah, that's Hashem. That's where you find Hashem. But when you have 2 Yidden, one lording over the next, one on top of the next, there you know there's no Hashem over there. He says, you sit down to make a l'chaim to bring out this point. Tefillah is the connection to Hashem. You want Hashem, Yidden all sit together. And in l'chaim itself, you have the 2 Yuds in the middle, right, that show this inyan of Ishtabas, Yidden, right, Yud, Eis Yud and Yidden, right? The same idea. They're playing back on they're playing on that term, right? So that's the l'chaim. L'chaim is that Yidden sit side by side and make a l'chaim. Let's make a l'chaim lil nishbas ben Yisrael ben Shalom Shachna Chos Yagan Aleinu lil nishbas ben Shalom Shachna ben Rabbeinu Avram Nishmas Rabbeinu Chaim Zanel ben Rabbeinu Moshe Nishmas Rabbeinu Avram Atzia ben Rabbeinu Menachem Nachum Nishmas Rabbeinu Menachem Nachum ben Rabbeinu Yisrael Nishmas Rabbeinu Avram ben Rabbeinu Doiver Nishmas Rabbeinu Doiver ben Rabbeinu Avram Nishmas Rabbeinu Yisrael ben Rabbeinu Eliezer Yitzchak Nishmas Rabbeinu Yitzchak ben Rabbeinu Shlomo Luri Ashkenazi HaRizal Nishmas Kol Tzadikim HaChasidim Nishmas Rabbeinu Meir ben Rabbeinu Eliezer Jacob Nishmas Rabbeinu Nosson Nota ben Rabbeinu Shlomo Megala Amukas Nishmas Rabbeinu Avadia ben
what's that thing? How it's that old?
I don't know if he has the last name. Nishmas Rabbeinu Avadia Ben, I think it was like Parachi or something maybe, but Nishmas Kol Tzadik V'Chol Chasidim and ganz Klal Yisrael Shev Sach Baruch Nasocha Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Sha'akol Niyeh B'Dvarim. Amen.
All right, now we can start.
Yaakov. Yaakov.
Ben Avadia ben Rabbeinu Yaakov. Okay. The Rishner, just I was looking at a sefer in Rabbi Bosner's shul. They made a likut. It's called Irin Kadishin of the Rishner's Torah, and the Rishner was a very unique personality in as much as that he was held in such high esteem that he was viewed as being, the way they describe it was not just a tzaddik for his dar. He was like certain tzaddikim are their hashpah is in their dar, and other tzaddikim are looked at as being sort of like universal, for l'dari daris, and that's the way they view the Rishner.
The older tzaddikim were given a lot of comment.
Right. So they bring so reading of how the Abderov, right? Rav Mishur Heschel Ayiv Yisrael. Was nispal. They were just nispal by him, and either Gisa people would say, "Oh, we don't see him learning. And but they were made that Imam knew Kol Terakula, and he was a bucky and everything. And what they was describing in the sefer is that his godless was everything was behester. His madreg was mamash behester, and despite the fact in the chitzainis he put on a tremendous display of chitzainis, right? The original was famous for his opulence, right? He would go with a carriage which would be equivalent to to a Rolls Royce. He had 6 white horses, pulling whatever was 12 white horses. He walked around mamash like a melech, whatever the pshat and avodah was. But as far as his madregas,
He was a descendant of Shlomo Melech.
Yeah, he said he's a nitzas, I think, or Shlomo Melech. Yeah. Nitzas Shlomo Melech, yeah. And in Mela, this was his this is mahalch in the olam of chitzainis, but again, chitzainis is really just that ends up being more of a hester. It's just master more and more the pneumius of a person. I remember seeing years ago from the Maral. The Maral was talking about being master madregas, and he was masbeis. He says that madregas that are kept behester have such kayach. It's like literally putting it in to the 10th power. A person can have a madrega, but if he's master that madrega, right, its ability to affect the Welt, and I guess obviously means speaking nachas ruach HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ultimately, that is the kayach of things that are behester.
More so than people seeing it and being encouraged by it.
Huh?
More so than people seeing
You
it.
have to know. You have to know. It's
maybe case by case.
Yeah. I was just telling someone recently that, like the Vilna Gaon, right? He wasn't out doing kiruv v'chakim, right? He was in his room with the window shades drawn and leave me alone. Let me just learn. So what's he accomplishing, right? So what he's accomplishing is what Pashas, is Ben Azai said nafshi chash b'Torah. He didn't even get married. He didn't have children. Why? He says Harizos Masber.
So did he?
He did not get married. He did not have children. Ben Azai, right? He married Rabbi Akiva's daughter, but he divorced her, and I think Ben Erisin even he was considered Rabbi Akiva's son-in-law, but he He didn't have children. Nashke chashke b'Torah. And the Rizal's masber that his children, his toilados, were the tikkunim that he made in the Welt, and it's more specifically described as being misakin nishmas gerim. Right, that he brought about the tikkun that he brought about was that the greatest nitzayt kedusha that are deep in the imkei klipa. These are the crown jewels of nitzayt kedusha, and they get mesukan. Them coming as neshamas into the world as nishmas gerim, and that's a tikkun that the Rizal talks about in Shar Gagulim about the tikkun of nishmas gerim. So I was just thinking about the Vilna Gaon also, and the Vilna Gaon is well known. Right, he had a very close kasher with Avram ben Avram, the Ger Tzedek, who was killed by Kiddush Hashem. Right, and like Vasepis, saying that they crossed paths. But to me, it's pashut. I mean, I may be being a little bit guy addicted to right to say this, but to me, it's pashut, right? That the Goin held that his avodah behester of sitting and being davuk to Teres Hashem and just learning in his dark room was being misaken these tikkunim, and I think it's pashut he held that the Ger Tzedek Avram ben Avram was his uftu. That was his tikkun, and Mela he knew that his job was to advise on him, and he was able to say what type of tikkunim came about. I think the Gaon said that after Avram ben Avram was killed like Kiddush Hashem, he said that was it. The koiches atum of the Welt used to be the church. They mamash had koiches atum that they were able mamash to employ, and that was his mevatlet. Anything
about the Tilas Yadayim?
Something about Tilas Yadayim. Also, right, that the Ruach Ra, that Shari Yadayim, right? There's a tremendous Torah that came about through this tikkun of Avram and Aram the Ger Tzedek. And to me, it's I think, I imagine it's said because it seems to be pretty obvious. When you recognize that the Avodah of the Gaon was clearly something that was very much behester, and literally mining for these diamonds, not out, in the Chisayin stick of out. And you see this kasha with the Ger Tzedek. To me, it was just like a click, like, oh, that's what the kasha was.
They say that as he was being taken out to be killed, he passed by the Vilna Gaon's house, and the Vilna Gaon told him, Schneller, go.
That was right, because he had a shaila. He had a shaila that do you look to push off the misa? Because every moment in this world you're doing Kadosh Shemai more, and you can do more avodas Hashem. Or hey, he has a mitzvah Hashem. Is there in his makdim in mitzvah? That was his shaila, and the guy apparently told that hey, is a mitzvah.
I think the Messiah is like this. The Vilna Gaon pops his head out. He says, Schneller. So Avram ben Avram says, Taka Schneller. He tells him, Yo, Schneller, and then he moved. Like that was the conversation. That's what I remember the conversation.
So so you were there. Okay, I'm not the only one with an imagination. Okay, so the originator is famous, and they say I saw that he said this on the last Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan of his life, 2 days before he was nifter. He said, "What is Mar Cheshvan? Chodesh Mar Cheshvan." He says is Hayos Cheshvan is tremendously influenced by the Avodah of Tishrei. The Avodah of Tishrei is sort of comes to Lemaisa in Cheshvan, right? In Tishrei, you're still running in circles, still flying high the entire Tishrei. Cheshvan, you sort of you land, but the Kach of Tishrei is that it continues fueling your Avodah. And he says, Lashon Mar Cheshvan is that the lashon of the Gemara is the Gemara says that a person who finishes Shmoneh Esrei, he has to wait a shir dal amos before he goes to the bathroom, right? So in fact, the Gemara, what does he have to wait for? He's done. Right? So the Gemara says, call dal amos, the amount that it takes to walk dal amos, whatever it is, 3-4 seconds. His sifafasan mirachashin. His mouth is still trembling, still sort of like, still moving with the word Shema. He's done, but even after you're done, you still have this residual movement and reverberations echoing of your tefillah on your lips. So he said that's marcheshin. Marcheshin is the lashon mirachshin. That the whole avodah Tishrei is mirachshin in Marcheshin, and then they have to recognize that we have that connection to Tishrei. We have the connection to Tishrei, and appreciate it, and don't think, oh, it's gone, right? And we're sort of left standing without anything. Now, obviously, it's we're meant to build on it, but he describes it as being literally like a natural occurrence. Just an interesting remez I saw. This is also I think it's from the Rishon, or if not, maybe one of his children. It says that the pasuk for the Shem Havaya of the Tzir for Chodesh Kislev is V'dvash Haaretz Hahi Hashem. Okay. That's it's a Rashi Tevis. Udavash Vav K Yud. Udavash Haaretz Hahi Yud K Vav K. And so that's the Rashi Tevis is the tzir for Shem Havaya of Mar Cheshvan, because Mar Cheshvan is right the third quarter of the year, right? You have it's divided up. The Yud K Vav K has 12 permutations. First three start with Yud, second three start with Hey Rishayna, next three start with Vav, right? So you have decent Iyar Sivan all starts with the Yud. The Tammuz of Elul is K, right? Cheshvan Kislev Tevis, right? Nisan Iyar Sivan, Tammuz of Elul, Tishrei Cheshvan Kislev is Vavs, right? And Tevis Shvat Adar is
The second hay?
Is second hay, right? So Cheshvan is the middle of the Vavs, and the idea of Cheshvan is a very memutzadik month, right? That's Vav is the memutza, and that's why fall is a very memutzadik time of year, right? It's not too hot, not too cold. But that's the Rashi Tevis of the tzir of Shem Havaya of Chodesh Cheshvan. The stay from the Rishner, from one of his children, and the Seif Tevis of that pasuk. Udvash is a shin, haaretz is a tzadi, udvash haaretz hahi, udvash. What do you, is there a sit
Let's
there?
do them over here.
No. Is it
That's
udvash?
You sit right here.
Udvash. I'm missing. There's a resh over there. Udvash Hayoim Hazeh Hashem. Udvash Hayoim Hazeh. I say Vav K Yud. And the Seif Tevis is Shin and the Mem, Hey and the Hey. They say and the Mem in Menatzbach, right, is 600, right, because the Chaf is 500, right, and the Chaf is 500. And the mem is 600. So if you make the mem into 600 and you add up the Seif Tev, it's big match of Tishrei. 600 plus 300 is 900, right? That's the tough ratio of Tishrei, the shin, and then you have the two hays is the yud of Tishrei. So he says the merum is in the Rosh Tevis is the tzir for the Shem Havaya of that month, and the Seif Tevis of that tzir for Shei of those letters is Meramis Tishrei. That Taka Tishrei is Taka there, still alive and well in Chodesh Cheshvan. Just to mention what we say every year over from the Bnei Yissaschar, Bnei Yissaschar has a whole drasha on Chodesh Cheshvan, and one of his famous drashas on Chodesh Cheshvan, and he brings down a medrash. The medrash says, it's a long medrash, but the pasuk that is being darish is of Nei Binyamin Ephraim and Asher Eretz Gvurisecha L'chal Yishua Solanu. He's darish that whole pasuk, and he says that pasuk is referring to the Chadashim that refer to Binyamin Ephraim and Asher, and one of those Chadashim is Cheshvan, right? Chodesh Cheshvan, he brings down from a medrash that the Binyan Bayis Hashlishi is going to be in Chodesh Cheshvan, because by the Bayis, by the Mishkan, by the Mishkan, the Malachas HaMishkan was finished in Cheshvan, and they didn't do Hakamas HaMishkan until Nisan, right? And so Chodesh Cheshvan was complaining, and Mela Hashem said, "Don't worry, the Bayis Hashlishi is going to be built in Chodesh Cheshvan," which is not interesting. You must have made this Arab, because the way it works was like this: Kislev, it says by the Bayis Harishon, Shlomo finished all the Malach in Kislev. He didn't make the Chanukah until Tishrei. So Mela, Chodesh Kislev was upset, so Kadosh Baruch said, "Don't worry, Kislev, you're going to get the Chanukah's Bayis Hasheni is going to be in Kislev, and Chanukah is Ikar Chanukah's Bayis Hasheni is Kislev. That's what the Medrash brings down."
Didn't he say that by the Mishkan, which was pushed up to Nissan?
That was Cheshvan, yeah. Cheshvan was pushed up to Nisan, yeah.
Cheshvan was Kislev. It was Chafei Kislev. They finished. They came down. Merchant came down on Yud Aleph Tishrei, and they came on Yud Tishrei. Actually, they gave the order, the command to build the Mishkan. They completed on Chafei Kislev.
Chafei Kislev, you sure?
I think so. Yeah.
I could get the Bnei Tzad. I could be. I'm confusing, with the Mishkan or the Bayis Harishon. No, don't get a chumash, get a bnei saschar. Okay, it's fine. My recollection is that the Mishkan was done in Cheshvan, right? And Bayis Harishon was done in Kislev, but I could be confused. I was just thinking, if I'm right, that the Mishkan was done in Bayis in Cheshvan, and its makeup is Bayis Hashlishi, right? The makeup from Mishkan and Bayis Hashlishi, that would be very geschmack, because Mishkan and Bayis Hashlishi really go hand in hand. Because Mishkan is something that's lo'ilam v'ad. The next thing is chorban on Mishkan. Bayis Rishon has a chorban, right? So it's makeup zman. It could be in a Bayis Sheni, which also was unfortunately nachra. Masha'enkim Mishkan Ma'asidei Moshe. Right? There's no chorban in it when it comes to Mishkan and Meil. The Bayis Hashish, which is going to be lo'ilam v'ad, right? Is a very misugal or very roy dika replacement for Chodesh Cheshvan. But it could be you're right. It could be I'm mistaken. We'll look it up and we will weigh in on it next week. Bez Hashem Yisbarach. Okay, that is a little bit about the Rabbeinu Yisrael ben Rabbeinu Shalom Shachna Zechus Yagen Aleinu. That is the yahrzeit also of Rav Ovadia Yosef. We spoke a little bit about him earlier, but I saw a story and I meant to look it over just to get the finer details of it, because I don't remember. There are a lot of nice nikudas in it, and remind me, I'll look at it, I'll tell you the finer nikudas. But just an interesting story. Rav Ovadia Yosef was interested in one thing and one thing only. He was interested in Torah. And he Agav Orcha, he got schlepped into other things. Later on in life, he really got very schlepped into politics. But Be'ikr, Torah was Kiyem Chayenu. And I saw a story written in a book, so if you want to look at it, it's a story yourselves. It's a book is written by Chili Spiro, and it's called What a Story, I believe. It had the following story. That's where I think I saw it. Rav Ovadia Yosef was being honored with the Israel Prize. Okay, they give out Israel Prize for Jewish literature, and somehow they decided that he's going to get the prize for writing his Tshuva Sefer, I think Yabi Aimer, And this goes back to the 1960s. And his family was very poor. He wasn't in a very powerful position. And together with Israel Prize, he got a nice lump sum of money. I don't remember what the amount was, like 100,000 shekel, maybe. It was a large amount of money. And the ceremony for the Israel Prize was going to be at 7 o'clock. And if you don't show up for the ceremony, I think they give the prize to someone else. I'm not sure exactly that detail. But because Rav Ovadia Yosef had a shir every night, 7 o'clock, to 5 balabatim in my head I have the basis all Shtiblach, but somewhere one of the Shtiblach in that area. And the government car that's there to pick him up, or whoever whoever it is, tell him, no, we have to go. He says, don't worry, I have my shir. He says the shir. After the shir, people have questions. He continues talking with the shir. After the shir, there's nothing on his agenda other than the shir and the regular questions. They don't say go out after the shir. After the shir, he gets into the car. They drive him to the event. He's nice and fashionably late, and the prime minister's speaking already, and he comes in and makes a whole rash, and you tell him that's it. He's losing the prize. He says, "I don't care." He says, but at least let me give my speech. He gets up, he gives a speech, and he just rallies about Torah, and these prizes is nothing compared to the Schar Torah, and my talmidim, the 5 talmidim that I live with, is much more important to me than the 1,000 people than dignitaries that are here. And he just like totally trashed the entire event and just told tears everything. And the share that I have is everything, and let everything else can fall wherever it falls. That was basically. I forgot to look over the details, but that was like, it's just like. I don't like it's like no shaykhs. I have a share 5 people, and I was thinking, I have a share 5 people. It's worth the world. That was so. If there is a 5th person who's going to watch this one day, anyway. So that's Ravad Yosef. That was his the message he told Klal Yisrael. Don't bore me with the Olam Hazeh details. Right, Torah is everything. I just want to. Maybe it's just finish up with a little shtickle from Imrei Noam, and the reason I'm saying this shtickle is because really I want to share with the Olam, or just have it down for posterity, because I said a chiddush on Sukkos by Hakafis. Did I tell you about Hakafis? I said a chiddush by Hakafis. It must have been after you left. I thought of it, and it has to do. It reminded me now when I saw the shtickle in the Imrei Noam. And I was supposed to say with Shikl and then we'll just record, document the chiddush. It's like a shtick of wacky chiddush, but it's good. The Imrei Noam brings down from the Arizal that Arizal says actually in many places. Actually, this I'm not so sure, but. We know that Dar Mabel, right? Dar Mabel looks like some random, ragtag generation that went bad, and you think unfortunately these things happen, and the Dar Mabel are really they are a recycling. We spoke many times about the recycling of neshamas. Adam Rishon was chaytei. Lots of neshamas ended up in a bad situation. They needed tikkunim. And that is the whole avodah of Olam Hazeh, be misaken the kilkel of Chet Adam Rishon, and then I guess after we misaken that, then you misaken the final knack that Adam Rishon would have needed to be misaken at that point. And the neshamas of the Dahar Mabel are these neshamas tahiris kedoshis nitzaitis hakedoshis that came back to this world for a tikkun, and they didn't make it, right? But the Arizal, Noach with his avodah added some level of tikkun to these neshamas, meaning they ended up being killed, right? They ended up being drowned, but there was some sort of, whenever there is an einish that happens, right? It has some sort of tikkun, and under Noach's, through Noach's avodah at that time, he managed to sort of affect the world in a way that the Dor HaMabel, that even though they got killed, there was some sort of tikkun, and now they're ready to come back for the next try. Where do they come back? Dar Flaga, Anshe Sedaim, Klal Yisrael, Mitzrayim. Okay, but because the mechanics that we're going to be talking about is Noach being misakin these nishamas, and comes along the Imrei Noam, and he says Yodua, that the shame that is misakin, that's mitar, kol minei sigim, that's mitar all the shmutz from the shamas that need to be cleansed. I mean, the way the Rizal describes it is, right, when you mine gold out of the ground, right? What does it look like? It doesn't look like gold. It has some it's mostly dirt, and you have to really be mitired. You have to purify it, and it's many steps till it gets purified, right? And ultimately, the ultimate purification ended up being the Korah Baras of Klal Yisrael Mitzrayim. But this is the beginning stages of it. He says the shame that's misakin, that's used for between Mitar Umal ben Kol Mini Sigin, is a Shem Samach Gimel. Okay, Shem Samach Gimel is Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei, written out with the Milei that we've spoken about in the past. And he says every time you have a tikkun of these sigim, these neshamas that are affected by this. This is called tchias. This is on some level tchias hamesim. And he says that you're mechaven by the bracha of bracha ta Hashem mechaya hamesim. You're supposed to be mechaven the shem samach gimel. Okay, so when yud ke vav ke is written, is you memale yud with yud vav and dal is 20, then ke yud vav and an aleph and a vav, and then a ke yud. That's big match is 63. So he says like this: shem samach gimel is comprised of two parts. Okay, we have Shem Kel, right? Chesed Kel Kol Yom. You know, Kel is a Shem Hashem, a Shem Chesed. The Shem Kel is rooted in Shem Samach Gimel. Okay, and it comes from the Miloi of Samach Gimel, because you have 3 Yuds in the Miloi, and an Aleph in the Miloi of the Vav, Vav Aleph Vav. Okay, so you have 3 Yuds and an Aleph, that gets you to Kel, right? So 31. What's left after you take out the 31 from the 63? You're left with 32. 31, 32, 63. 32 is Begematria Kavod. So he says, Kel Kavod is a Shem Samach Gimel. That's why the Pasuk in Tehillim says, Kel HaKavod here, Hashem Amayim Rabim, which is referring to the Mabul, right? The Mabul is a tikkun that comes through Shem Samach Gimel, which is Kel HaKavod. That's what he says. But the pasuk says, and then the Bereshit, "Vayisatzev el liboy," right? Kel and Lev, right? Which is this inyan of that the Shem Samach Gimel is going to be piled over here, taken in the Welt. So he says, if you, right, that is right. That's the precursor. He says when you take when you want to get Kel Kavod, and you want to get it to its full kayach, you take Kel and you multiply it by Kavod. 31 times 32 is Gematria 992, right? Which is Gematria Eile Toldos Noach. Okay, that's Miramis, right? He says that the Noach is the tzaddik that's ultimately the tzaddik is the one who allows all these pulas of tikkunim to happen. So that's Noach's place over here. And he says, who is the tikkun for? It's a tikkun of Mechaya Mesim. He says, the Rashi Tevis of tzaddik Tamim Haya is Begematria Hamesim, right? It says Rome is a bechin of Noach Eloto is Noach, right? Noach, right, is the koyach of Shem Samach Gimel is inside Noach. Or Noach represents that. He has the ability to be of cause that to be mashpia in the veil to bring about this tikkun of Mechaya Mesim in the Churban of the Mabul. That's the shtickle from the Imre Noam and the first shtickle in Parshas